And we're back! Let me talk a little about the last fight before we get started. So Deku's whole thing is that he supports the government's registering and licensing the use of superpowers, right? Well, he just killed a teenage son of a cop at 5 in the morning in a training match gone horribly wrong. There's a lesson about government oversight here, but props to Death Battle. I'm not a fan of them trying to shoehorn friendships into their fights, because instead of humanizing the characters, it makes them look schizophrenic. But Deku did sound appropriately traumatized at the end. You can tell he's imagining Miles' father staring him down in court. Sorry about the closed casket funeral, Officer Morales. I didn't know your son was that weak. But let's move on. We have Godzilla versus the Incredible Hulk. Nice, very very nice. This is the one I'm looking forward to the most next to Ash versus Yugi. If Death Battle gets the fight right, they could have an all-time great on their hands. Just picture it. The fight starts with Banner in Tokyo attending a conference about the oxygen destroyer. Then everything starts to shake, the camera falls over, someone shouts that something is happening to Dr. Banner, and then the fight unfolds through a montage of news broadcasts and phone recordings. There's an Easter egg on the news where scientists speculate that Hulk might be an offspring of the Frankenstein's monster, like in Sanda and Gara from War of the Gargantuans. There's an atomic fireball, and when the fireball finally subsides, Hulk and Godzilla are fighting a world thick with ash. The ground is glass and cracks as they wrestle, and then with one final bestial cry, one of them dies. Then the camera pans out and the winner is alone, trapped on all sides by a gray loneliness that seems to stretch on forever. The wind starts to blow, and the winner begins to walk, because that's all that's left to do now. The winner begins to walk towards a lonely future. The last Titan, the last son of Adam. Hold on, are people telling me that it's going to be a 3D fight? Oh man, I'm not going to get any of that, am I?
Nope, 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 nope. That's a whole lot of nope.
So who do I think is going to win? I'm betting the Hulk is going to win, and I've got 5 reasons why. Hulk has greater intelligence, greater regeneration, greater energy powers, greater survivability, and most importantly, greater strength. Let's take a look at each of these reasons in more detail. Oh, and if you're heavily into Versus Battle and want to know what I think about a certain version of Godzilla who shares his name with a certain RPG series that also heavily features avatars, you can skip ahead in the video to this posted time here. This one shouldn't need much of an explanation. Godzilla's intelligence ranges from animal level to being able to talk. Yes, Godzilla can talk. He did so in Godzilla vs. Gigan. But the Hulk's intelligence ranges from being able to talk to being a nuclear physicist. Even the less verbose members of Bruce Banner's internal family are capable of a little tactical thinking, so Hulk definitely has the advantage when it comes to smarts. Both Godzilla's G cells and Hulk's H cells, can we call them H cells? Well, the point is, Godzilla and Hulk can both regenerate. Godzilla is able to close wounds and regrow organs in seconds. Destroyer was able to slice clean through burning Godzilla with his funky laser horn, but the wound closed up as soon as the horn was through. Hulk's regeneration isn't typically that good. A notable historical feat comes from Peter David, who had Hulk quickly regenerate his skin after Vector of the UFOs repulsed it off. However, Al Ewing's Immortal Hulk featured a memorable scene in which Hulk is cut apart, put in jars, and stored in one of America's many taxpayer-funded black sites. Hulk reveals that he allowed himself to be canned like spinach from hell, and then he does this. Now let's take a moment to take that all in. You know, in some timeline out there, Disney never bought Marvel, and David Cronenberg got to helm a Hulk film. So Godzilla and Hulk would appear to have very similar regenerative abilities. If you don't destroy every cell of their entire being, well, they just come back. But what if you went for the brain? If there's no brain, there's nothing to control all those cells and the body dies, right? Well, that was the conclusion of G-Force arrived at Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2, by targeting Godzilla's secondary brain with the G-Crusher weapon. Yeah, Godzilla has 2 brains. He just does. G-Force was able to totally shut down Godzilla's lower body. G-Force would have killed Godzilla if Rodin didn't transfer his life force to Godzilla and revive him. But what about the Hulk? Does he die if you get him in the brain? No, actually. Back in Ultron Forever, Dr. Doom assembles a team of displaced Avengers to fight an Ultron with the power of Odin. Long story. But the Hulk on the team is an early version of the Hulk, much weaker than the Hulk would have been at his peak. And during the story, the Hulk gets his head chopped off by Captain America's shield, only to regrow his head, his banner head. And then the Hulk picked up his Hulk head and reabsorbed it. That's why the Hulk has superior regeneration. Both Hulk and Godzilla can repair damage near instantaneously, but the Hulk is the only one that's been shown to have any way around the destruction of his brain. This was a fun category to research. Godzilla being able to absorb nuclear radiation started with the Heisei era, but it developed from him being able to absorb lightning to magnetize himself in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. Overall, Godzilla has a broader energy absorption abilities than Hulk. He can absorb lightning and something called super energy in the SNES Super Godzilla game, and everything broadly classified as nuclear radiation, while Hulk is limited to absorbing electromagnetic wavelengths with frequencies greater than 30 exahertz, also known as gamma radiation. The downside to Godzilla's energy absorption is that Godzilla doesn't retain what he absorbs. He absorbs power and then he uses that power up, typically releasing it in a beam or a pulse. When he doesn't release that power, it can cause him to melt down, as with the case with burning Godzilla. The Hulk's energy absorption, on the other hand, has been rather poor for most of his history. The Silver Surfer beat the Hulk by absorbing his gamma radiation twice, and the Red Hulk absorbed so much gamma radiation out of the Hulk that he was unable to change back to the Hulk for quite some time. But when the Hulk rematched with Red Hulk, he had gotten so much better at energy absorption food that the Red Hulk just couldn't. Hulk generated so much gamma radiation that not only could the Red Hulk not debuff him, but he remained stronger than the Red Hulk through the energy drain and overpowered him. And the Red Hulk isn't a chump at energy absorption foo either. He once drained the power cosmic out of the Silver Surfer. So the Hulk is likely going to win an energy drain tug of war with Godzilla. But is there a limit to the power the Hulk can absorb? Is there a point where he melts down like burning Godzilla? Well, the Maestro, a version of the Hulk stronger than the Professor version of the Hulk from a dark future, was defeated when he was sent back in time to the detonation of the gamma bomb that created the Hulk in the first place, leaving only a skeleton behind. But in Incredible Hulk 460, weird stuff happens. Now bear with me, because what I'm about to describe is some primo comic book weirdness. It's 1998. Hulk and the other heroes have returned to Earth after a stay in a pocket reality created by Franklin Richards. But on his way back through realities, the Hulk ends up absorbing alien energy that started to kill him from the inside out. In his death throes, he subconsciously guided himself to Los Alamos, the place of Hulk's birth, and started to leak gamma fire. How come we're on Hulk fight number 3 and we still haven't gotten this visual in Death Battle yet? It's so cool! The Hulk being the Hulk, he got over his fatal dose of Franklin Richards' energy pretty quickly, but the outpouring of gamma fire caused the corpse of the Maestro to resurrect because, get this, his ghost had been haunting his bones since he died and had been able to lure the Hulk to return again and again to Los Alamos to steal tiny bits of gamma from him until he can resurrect himself.
Man, you come right out of a comic book.
So, in the worst case scenario for the Hulk, he's got a better handle on the energy drain tug of war than Godzilla, and when he explodes from absorbing too much energy, well, his remains just suck up more of Godzilla's energy to revive himself. Now that would be weird to see. Hulk would be constantly exploding and reforming, exploding and reforming, but essentially, the Hulk can't die so long as he's fighting the walking gamma fountain that is Godzilla. Now, given that Death Battle is going to make Hulk and Godzilla both powerful enough to obliterate billions upon billions of universes, the planets they're standing on shouldn't last about 1 picosecond before turning into a debris field. So one has to ask how Hulk and Godzilla would fare in the vacuum of space. One could argue that Godzilla would be fine in outer space because he fights across the entire solar system in the S-game, Godzilla Monsters of Monsters. But it seems more likely that the planets here have atmospheres, albeit of a thin kind, similar to Planet X from the film Invasion of the Astro Monster. Would Godzilla need air? Well, that's a tricky question to answer. It's easier to answer the question, would Godzilla need warmth? And the answer is yes. Though Godzilla can fight in freezing temperatures without a problem, prolonged exposure to the extreme cold has always been Godzilla's weakness. It's a reptile thing. The cold doesn't physically harm Godzilla, but it lulls him into a deep state of lethargic dormancy. The cold defeated Godzilla in Godzilla Raids Again, in Son of Godzilla, and isn't that scene just the cutest? In Godzilla vs. Destroyer, in Thor vs. Godzilla, in Shin Godzilla, and even in the official Toho Twitter. So as soon as Godzilla hits space, he falls asleep, right? Well, it's not necessarily that simple. Since the vacuum of space doesn't have a medium like air, Godzilla would at first be way hotter than he would be on Earth because all of his heat would be conserved. That's why the ISS vents heat into space, because otherwise the astronauts would cook alive from the trapped heat. But eventually, Godzilla would fall victim to thermal radiation and gradually start to lose heat. That being said, Godzilla is in the path of sunlight, he's going to be exposed to temperatures of about 150 degrees Fahrenheit. But if he's behind the moon or Earth rubble, he'll instead cool down in temperatures of about negative 150 degrees Fahrenheit. Unfortunately for Godzilla, he's fighting a nuclear physicist who will know all about this, and will either punt Godzilla into deep space away from the sunlight, or push Jupiter in front of him. So Hulk has the advantage in fighting in space, assuming he can fight in space. Can he? Well, yes actually. Historically, the Hulk has long suffered from something called having to breathe. In early Marvel comics, it was commonly stated that the Hulk was the strongest character on land, but Namor was the strongest character in the sea, mostly because the Hulk needed air. Needing to breathe was such a common Hulk weakness that Malice defeated She-Hulk by taking her air away under the logic that it's the weakness for all Hulk. But Hulk has evolved in recent times. Literally evolved. First Hulk evolved an organ to breathe underwater, yeah. And then Nick Fury speculated that the Hulk could potentially evolve a way to breathe in space. And then Immortal Hulk, well, look at it. Look at that. His head is in a jar and he's fine. He's not breathing or anything. He has no lungs. So, in a space battle, which is extremely likely to happen with how powerful these two characters are, Hulk has the advantage of an environment where, if Godzilla is positioned properly, he starts to get sleepy. We talk about how strong Hulk and Godzilla are, let's put aside how Death Battle is going to make them both faster than light multiverse killers for the moment. Generally speaking, Hulk can break apart a planet with his muscles, and Godzilla, well, can't. Now, I don't think that saying that Hulk can destroy a planet is controversial. He was counteracting forces that would blow up the Earth as far back as Avengers 5, and he's got his Worldbreaker form. The name does exactly what it's implied, so it's safe to say that the Hulk could break a world apart with his big green hands. So how does Godzilla compare with world breaking? Well, let's go down the list. If I've excluded a Goji somewhere, please let me know in the comments. But before you post Godzilla-kun, know that Godzilla-kun doesn't count as Godzilla. If you composite Spider-Man, you do not include Spider-Ham. No, and unproduced concepts from the art book don't count. Nope. No, twice, one for Kiryu and one again for Godzilla. No. Only if you apply a lot of swankery to the Dimension Tide feat, so no. Nope. Almost, if he turns into Burning Godzilla he destroys the world, but he also blows up in the process. Only if you apply extremely dubious scaling to Toho's Ultraman clone Zone Fighter. The closest anyone in the movies ever came to destroying a planet was Ghidorah destroying Venus. But he only destroys the surface and atmosphere, and he did it under an unknown amount of time, so no. Nope. Nuh-uh. Oh, I love him, but no. Blowing a hole in the center of the Earth was cool, but no. Nope. No. No. No, but go play the Pipework video games. They're great. No. No. Nope. No, and don't even try to scale him to Thor. Go read issue 23 again. All the superheroes agreed to try and take Godzilla alive, so they were holding back. No, the writer chickened out and posted that Godzilla's breath weapon is virtually kryptonite. And now we've come to the 4 versions of Godzilla that could be argued to match or... First up, the Godzilla from Godzilla vs. Thor. Donny Cates took the GMK Godzilla and turned him into a fanfic abomination powered by cosmic symbiote juice. This version fought a Thor who channeled every storm in the multiverse to a draw, and if he's allowed into Godzilla composite, Godzilla should beat Hulk. Though, if the compositioning is that generous for Godzilla, then why isn't Hulk allowed his weird one-issue power-ups, like that one time he became Captain Universe, or the time the Ultimates Hulk got his hands on 4 out of the 6 Infinity Gems? I don't think this Godzilla should be brought into the fight for the same reason I don't think these Hulks should be brought into the fight either. I want to see Godzilla fight the Hulk. I don't want to see Null Force fight the Enigma Force with the Infinity Gauntlet. Next up, Godzilla from Godzilla Destroys the Marvel Universe. His claim to fame is killing a Celestial that's far smaller than any Celestial's ever been depicted, and is also some kind of space robot instead of an energy god inside a shell. I don't think the writers knew what a Celestial was. Be that as it may, let's give Godzilla Celestial scaling. Does that mean he can beat the Hulk? Well, in another example of Death Battle's horrible scheduling, this Godzilla is supposed to fight the Hulk in issue 4, which is scheduled to be published on October 15th of this year, so Death Battle is rolling the dice with this episode. If they say Hulk wins, but then Godzilla thumps him, they'll look silly, and vice versa. But regardless, I don't think this version should be brought into the versus battles until the story has been concluded. Next up is Godzilla from Godzilla in Hell. Now this is my favorite Godzilla comic, and one of my most favorite Godzilla stories of all time. Godzilla does indeed go to hell, where he's tortured by the devil, until he allows his essence to be consumed by the devil's minion to infuse them with his Godzilla spirit, his, dare I say, transcendent Buddha nature, and creates a giant composite Godzilla that obliterates the devil and allows Godzilla to revive back on Earth, which means that, if I'm interpreting the story right, Godzilla is the biggest and coolest Bodhisattva. And did you know that there was an Italian proto-superhero from the 1920s named Machiste? And in 1925 you had a film called Machiste in Hell, where he goes to hell and beats up the devil? It's so good it might even count as the first superhero film. And if you want to check it out, I've got a link to it in the video description. Wait, where was I? Oh yeah, Hulk vs. Godzilla. Is the Godzilla from Godzilla in Hell strong enough to beat the Hulk? Well, it depends on a lot of assumptions. How powerful is this version of the devil supposed to be? Mephisto level? Belasco level? How many megatons of TNT is the Buddha nature worth? What is the sound of the universal clapping? So my answer is maybe? Yeah, that's my answer. Maybe. Sorry, not all questions in life can be answered. Screonk in peace, brother. We are moving on. And now we've come to a guy that's been the vanguard of Godzilla arguments online. He's the heavy lifter of the Godzilla composites, the Metal Sonic of the Team Godzilla, the Black Iron of the Godzilla's Voltron, Godzilla Ultima. Oh, and if you jumped here from the start of the video, hello! You missed hearing me talk about Machiste in Hell. Godzilla Ultima comes from Godzilla Singular Point, a 13-episode anime that released in 2021. In this world, giant monsters are created by deposits of extra-dimensional particles called red dust, or archetype that cluster around various singular points around the world. So the singular points aren't singular. Go figure. Archetype comes from another reality and is the reason why giant monsters can do the things that they can do. The downside is that the giant monsters need archetypes to live. They are their environment, and if taken away from the archetype, they weaken and die. This isn't a problem for Godzilla, however, as he produces archetype. A lot of archetype. So much so that Tokyo starts to transform into what is presumably Ultima's native environment. Yeah, the show is basically Shin Godzilla plus The Mist. If you watch Singular Point, first of all, I want to say that I am so sorry. Second of all, you might be confused what all the hype about Godzilla Ultima is because he's not very impressive. Does he blow up a star? No. Does he blow up a planet? No. Does he blow up a continent? No. Does he use his Funky the Writer watch too much Evangelion particles to molecularly destroy anything? Teleport anyone to the sun? Rewind time and so forth? Nope. No and no. So what's all the hype about? The hype is about supplemental material! Yes, supplemental material. That ace of versus battles. By mistranslating, misconstruing, and misinterpreting the written word like a politician, you too can convince billions that a Greek war boy can blow up as an arbitrary number of universes. Get your supplemental material today! The supplementals reveal that the weirdo dimension archetypes the giant monsters hail from is alive. What's more, it's one of those vague, flavorless, omnipotent deities. And because Singular Point uses a lot of Seed Match, the failed STEM majors that like to think they run the Versus Battlesphere got very excited. This being didn't just create everything, he created an everything that existed in a pan-dimensional insighted parallelogram space. Wowzers! But there's a problem here. This being, let's call him Bob, isn't actually Godzilla. Godzilla is part of Bob, but so are the fodder Rodins and Mandevs that fought Godzilla and got taken down by the conventional military forces. Bob is as much Godzilla as he is not Godzilla. Bob even helped humanity to destroy the first Godzilla. Yeah, there was a first Godzilla. There usually is in any given Godzilla universe. I think putting Godzilla Ultima into the Godzilla composite is fair, but not when Bob is involved, because Bob is not Godzilla. But let's just say we count Godzilla. Well then, to be fair, shouldn't we give Hulk the time he was possessed by the One Below All, Marvel's own vague and flavorless omnipotent deity, now in evil colors? Personally, I don't want to see Bob Godzilla or One Below All Hulk in this upcoming episode. I want to see two nuke monsters fight. I don't want to see two very lame and boring gods fight by using Godzilla and Hulk as hand puppets. And now we've come to the end. So yeah, I'm putting my marker on the Hulk to win. It would be pretty weird after everything I just said in the video if I ended up voting for Godzilla now, wouldn't it? Hulk's strength and his powers are just way beyond Godzilla. You'd have to bring in extremely lopsided interpretations of extremely esoteric versions of Godzilla just to bring him up to Hulk's level. And that's only if you lock out all the weird god modes Hulk has hidden away in his several decades of comic book history. Now, I don't see how Godzilla wins if you composite both characters by the same rules and... Hold on, what's this? Oh no. No, Hulk Bros, what is this? What is this? The official Godzilla cookbook? Godzilla has unlocked cookbook scaling! Run, Hulk! Run! It's Guacazilla! Why is Guacazilla that yellow?